Hello, everyone. I just wanted to give a little bit of information about my own personal stay while I was in China throughout the beginning of the 2020 coronavirus outbreak. However, I was not in the city of Wuhan or Hubei province. I was actually in Chongqing, China, which is also in southern China. It is actually a province that is one province away from Hubei, which is where Wuhan is. So, I decided that I was going to go to China months ago to see my boyfriend and also to conduct some research work. And I decided I was going to go through on Chinese New Year because that seems like a fun time to visit your boyfriend when he's free and everybody else is free and it's the biggest holiday in China. So I was really excited to go. Really, really excited. Unfortunately, I didn't pay attention to all of the warnings that were given to me by my friends and my family. I'd seen that there was a viral outbreak, and it was all over the news. But I thought to myself, this is just something that people are over exaggerating. The news likes to exaggerate literally everything. So I didn't really think much of it. I kept my plane ticket. I went to China on January 20th and finally got there on the 21st. So when I got there, everybody in the airport was in masks. And I thought to myself, okay, there's a lot of pollution around here. It should be fine. My boyfriend was very happy to see me. And we stayed in Chongqing for 2 days in the main city. Everything seemed pretty good at first. For the first few days, not I would say it was about a 50-50 ratio of people wearing masks and people not wearing masks. So I was pretty happy with everything that went on. We got to see the main monument, we went out, and then by the time we reached 3 days into my trip, so it's the 23rd at that point, everybody's wearing masks. The scare in Wuhan had gotten really, really bad, and we were basically told that everyone should get masks. The government was saying on the news that everyone should get masks because of this new novel coronavirus that was breaking out in Wuhan. Wuhan at that point had been quarantined completely, and so a little bit about the coronavirus itself. The coronavirus, the novel coronavirus that is a virus that is airborne. It attacks the lower respiratory system and gives pneumonia like symptoms. So, what's really challenging about this virus in particular is also that in certain individuals, for about 2 weeks, it can be asymptomatic, which means that you don't have any symptoms of having the virus, and it can be easily spread because it's airborne. So, moving back to the story, at this point, there are no masks to be bought in the city of Chongqing. We had looked, and luckily, before I had come, my boyfriend, in anticipation of all of this, had actually bought a pack of surgical masks. And now, to say that my boyfriend had gone to every single pharmacy, both Western medicine and traditional Chinese medicine, for those of you that may know, there's one on about every block in a Chinese city and in a Chinese town. We could not find a single place selling masks. Not one. Not even overpriced masks because everybody needed one. We looked on Taobao, which is Chinese Amazon, but better. And there were no masks for sale. And some of the masks that were on sale at some points sold out within a minute at ridiculously overpriced prices. So needless to say, everyone was very concerned about this situation. So we decided that we're going to take the train to his hometown at this point, and in his hometown, everybody is wearing a variation of some sort of mask. So whether it's a surgical mask, an N95 mask, if you were lucky enough to get an N95 mask, or a homemade mask, adults, children, people were wearing them backwards. There was a lot of misinformation about this. Some people were wearing them backwards. Some people were wearing masks that wouldn't protect you from literally anything. The local tailor was actually making masks on the side out of just plain pieces of fabric. And people were buying them for over 40 yuan, when normally a mask could be like 10 yuan or less. So everything was crazy. Little kids were wearing masks that weren't even going to protect them from anything because they were ill-fitting. So everyone was paranoid about everything at that point. There was nobody out on the streets for the most part, and every single day the police went by in a car on a speakerphone saying that everyone had to shut down their stores, and for the most part people did shut down their stores. But being China, they shut down their stores, and then they brought the metal grates up about halfway so people would still know that they were open, so that the only places that were really open were the mahjong halls, because mahjong's a really big deal in China, and you're not going to take mahjong away from the little old Chinese ladies. So that was that. So Chinese New Year fell on January 25th, and so by that time I was all ready to go out and play with fireworks and have a great deal of fun. And there were still people selling fireworks out on the streets. It hadn't gotten that bad at that point. And my boyfriend's friends decided that they were going to take us out in a car. And the first thing that they asked when we got in the car was, have we been having symptoms of any sort of illness at all? Everyone was paranoid. Everyone in the car was wearing masks. And we both said no, and so we went and shot off fireworks for Chinese New Year and had a grand old time. Now, at that point, I would think to myself, okay, I guess everything's gonna be okay. I guess it's not as big a deal. I guess people here really are just paranoid, and there is a lot of misinformation. I didn't think too much of it, to the point where later on in the week, Xi Jinping, who is the Chinese president, actually warned people to stay inside their homes as much as possible and not go out for almost any reason. That's when my boyfriend's family really started to get worried about our safety. So for the most part, he told me that we couldn't really go out, despite the fact that I really liked going out. And so we stayed inside. We didn't have internet. We didn't have a lot of different amenities that people are used to having, because we were in a small little town in the middle of nowhere, basically. And despite the fact that we were in a small town in the middle of nowhere, all of these people were really scared, and there actually had been reported cases of the virus in the town that I was staying in. So I could understand their precautions. So the end of my stay had turned around, and it was the last day. So I'd been there for about 2 weeks. And the family member that was originally set to drive me home, or not drive me home, but drive me to the train station with my boyfriend, who was originally going to take me to the airport like he always does, like any Chinese gentleman normally does for his girlfriend, had fallen through. He had decided that his car, because it was registered in another province, was not safe to take out of the borders, because there had been signs of people not being allowed to come back if their car had been registered in another province, because they had instituted checkpoints at this point. Around the first week of my stay, the end of the first week of my stay, they had started to institute sort of a border of people not being able to come in or out without having probable cause. So I could understand his reasoning behind that, but he decided to call me at, I kid you not, 9 o'clock on the night before I was going to leave. There were no taxi drivers. Public transportation had been eliminated except for trains and planes. I was basically stuck in my boyfriend's hometown, and I was also afraid that my plane ticket was going to get canceled, because the day before I was about to leave, United Airlines had canceled all planes to and from China. So I was really worried. My boyfriend was really worried. There wasn't really much that I could do to help in trying to find us a ride to the train station, not even to the airport, the train station. So this was crazy. We didn't end up finding a ride. We were just gonna go and see what we could do the next day. So the next day rolls on. I'm all packed and ready to go. And so we have to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, because my plane leaves at, I want to say it was 5 or 5:30, or no, actually it was 8 o'clock at night. There we go. So my plane leaves at 8 o'clock at night, but we have to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning so we could go to the center of his town to see if we could find any of the private taxis that are usually all over the place in his hometown center. We find one guy. One. One private taxi. And for a normal trip to the train station, it's around 20 yuan. This guy charges us over 300 yuan, and we take it, and we're very fortunate because this guy luckily has a car that is registered within the town limits. Also, he's the only guy that can offer us a ride. So we take what we can get, folks. And we go with him. He tells me that in case there's a checkpoint, that this guy has to be my uncle, so there's that. And that my boyfriend's actually my brother because I look very Asian. But, anyways, we get to the town border, and there's actually a checkpoint. It was pretty scary to watch. There were people in hazmat suits on either side of the car, and they made us roll down the window so that they could check our temperatures with these thermometers that don't actually need to touch any part of your body. And after they told us that we were clear to go and asked us a few questions, they disinfected the car with a spray that looked like it was meant to spray Raid on some weeds. So we leave that, and then halfway to the train station, there was another checkpoint, and the same thing happens. You get tested for your temperature with these thermometers by people in hazmat suits, get asked a few questions, have the car checked to make sure that it's in the right province, and the car gets disinfected again. So we finally get to the train station, and it's a ghost town. Now, anyone who's ever been to China knows that getting your train ticket as a foreigner is not fun because you usually have to wait in a 40-minute line because Chinese nationals, they can get their train tickets at a little machine by just swiping their ID card. You can't do that with a passport, so you actually have to get into the, like, old people slash foreigners slash people who have questions line, and takes forever. So I only have to wait about 5 minutes in that line where I normally have to wait 40. So it can tell you just how much of a ghost town it is. I get my ticket, no problem. There are enough slots for me to pick literally any time I want to leave because nobody wants to take the train because everyone's afraid that they're going to be infected. Makes sense. So, something else I should mention. At the train station, you're not allowed to actually be in the train station unless you have a face mask on. And again, all face masks had been sold out for a while, so I don't know where people are just coming up with these face masks from because everybody had them. So, before I actually go into the train station, not just the ticketing center, which is on the outside, there are people in hazmat suits waiting to take people's temperatures as they go into the train station. So they're also ready to ask a whole bunch of questions. So at that point, I have to wish my boyfriend a healthy and happy journey back home, give him a hug and a kiss, and get pretty sad because he's not able to take me to the airport like I'm used to. So that was pretty upsetting. But anyways, I get my temperature taken, I'm fine, and then I go in, I take my train, everybody inside, all of the 16 people that were inside this huge train station. And I go to our final destination, which is the main city of Chongqing. I get onto the subway from inside. There's barely anybody inside the subway. I want to say there were 5 people in the subway. 5. In a normally crowded subway where everybody's running to get a seat. So there's nobody there for the most part, and I finally get to the airport, and then at the airport, everybody's making a big deal about everything. Everybody's really scared, and you have to fill out so many forms asking you where you came from, how long you've been there, why you're doing this, why you're doing that. I'm just getting notifications here, so I'm sorry about that. But everything's crazy right now at that point in time, and so I'm just wondering to myself, am I actually going to make it onto this plane on time? Because everybody's asked so many different questions, especially if you're a foreigner. All of the 3 foreigners that were on our flight, but the foreigners from other flights were also directed into our line. So we finally make it onto the plane where, again, everybody on the plane is wearing a mask. And before we make it onto the actual plane itself, we have to have our temperature checked before we can actually just get onto the plane. On the plane, we get even more forms mid-flight asking us a contact number within China to reach, where we've been within China, our passport numbers, all of this stuff. And this is an immigration form. This is a special "Have you been to Wuhan" form in disguise. So we fill all that out, and they don't even check things like this, but they made sure that they checked every single person's piece of information, because my neighbor apparently wasn't filling it out correctly, and they made sure to come back the 6 times they needed to come back to correct every single little thing. So there's that. Anyways, I made it to Beijing, which is where I was flying because I needed to transfer flights. And in Beijing, they didn't pay as much attention. Everybody still had to wear a mask because at this point I think it was a government mandate. So everybody's wearing masks in the airport, but no one's really paying much of a big deal about anything. People are just ambling about. There aren't really any people at the airport, though. I don't think I've ever seen China this empty in my entire life. It was something that I'll remember for a very long time. So at that point, I get onto my plane. Everybody's wearing masks again. I make it to the US, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna get quarantined, because everybody was very concerned about people getting quarantined at that point in time. My mom had actually called me the day before asking me if I should be prepared for a quarantine. My boyfriend told me that I might get quarantined. All of my friends had called me on WeChat, which is China's social media platform, to tell me that I was probably going to be quarantined, and that over 20 airports had been accepting people. And this is all hearsay at this point. That people were being quarantined just for being in China. No, you were being quarantined for going to Wuhan. I didn't know this at the time, so I didn't know what to expect. So when I touched down, I was very happy to note that there was nobody in a mask. I didn't get quarantined, and the only thing I needed to do was go through customs, where somebody asked me where I was coming from. I say China, and then he asks me what part of China. I say southern China, and he's like, "Were you in Wuhan?" And I was like, "No." But I was in southern China, and he's like, "You're good," and I was on my merry way. And you'd think that'd be the end of the story because I was in the U.S. and asymptomatic, but no, that's not it, folks. I was so ready to go to work, and my work told me that I couldn't come in for 2 weeks, and that my other job, my other side job, told me that I also couldn't come in for at least a week. And all of my friends told me that they wouldn't see me for 2 weeks. And in addition to all of this, it was like feeling that I had a virus that I didn't have. My family took all of my stuff while they were wearing masks to greet me, and took all of my stuff, left it outside on a rainy day because it was apparently infected, and forced me to stay in my room, and fed me on paper plates. And so, guys, I've been in my bedroom for a week and a half, working from home, not really being able to leave the house. It's been pretty scary, and I thought all of this would end after I got home. I was so excited to actually get home, and it doesn't feel any better. I feel really bad for everybody that's going through anything like this, because right now in China they're going through a lot worse, though. My boyfriend, his schools have been closed down indefinitely. Not just him, actually. All schools in China who were out for Spring Festival are closed indefinitely, and a lot of transportation systems are closed. Towns are not speaking to each other. There's a whole mess of continued misinformation and wide panic in the area. So right now I think we should all have China in our thoughts, and I wanted to just give a little bit of information about my experiences throughout this time. If you guys found this at least a little bit insightful, please feel free to like this. If you guys have any questions about anything that I went through, if you want me to go through anything in a bit more detail, feel free to drop a question in the comments. I will be putting out more content about other travel adventures, and I'm actually going to be starting a new channel, so feel free to be on the lookout for that. So please feel free to subscribe. I will be coming out with new content. And yeah, that's everything I have to say for right now. Bye, guys.